It is time to bring in our State House and political insiders. Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist. A week from Saturday, Republicans go to the polls in South Carolina to select their candidate for president. And you guys have been saying for weeks you think it might be a done deal here. And the latest Winthrop poll shows it probably is, right?
That gap just seems to be getting wider and wider for Donald Trump's lead over Nikki Haley. I've said plenty of times, if she's not within single digits, it's going to be very difficult for her to do anything beyond Super Tuesday. I think they're looking right now, the funders are looking right now to ask the question whether or not she's got staying power or not. And if she can't pull it off at home, it's going to be really hard for her to do anything beyond that.
She has a math problem on top of a political problem. As I said from the beginning, second place does not matter in the Republican preference primary. So I think what the former governor is doing now is she's charting a path or staking out what's next for her and what's next within the Republican Party. Unfortunately for her and for anyone else, Trumpism is the order of the day. So it's not like the party is going to shift backwards back to a more center-left concept or line of thinking. It's going to be even more extreme. And so she's going to have to get on board with extremism if she wants a future in the party. Now, the monkey in the conversation here is what happens legally now that we know the former president's trial starts next month. So what does that actually mean for him going forward if he were to capture the nomination?
You feel like you're just watching popcorn pop in the bowl right now because you never know exactly what's going to be happening next. As it looks right now, there have been major moves to change and shake up what's going on at the Republican National Committee. And to Antoine's point, Trump is already beginning to make sure that his fingerprints are on the leadership of the Republican National Committee. So you're seeing a shift right now in that. The question is, will it be able to sustain that? Will he be able to do to maintain and hold on to that? Or is Nikki Haley going to still try? Are people still angsty enough at Donald Trump to still try to fund her as the kind of gadfly in the ointment? So
the long-term challenge is the RNC is broke. The DNC, we've had record fundraising. The RNC is broke. The CEO of the RNC has already indicated she's stepping down. The former president, who's the leader of the Republican Party, has already announced who he wants to replace her, and he's announced his daughter as co-chair. And so you all have some deciding to do about what you want to be when you grow up. And this primary is going to force you to grow up faster, perhaps, than you want to.
But I think if you take a look at what you have seen the president do in South Carolina, he still is doing what it takes to draw the crowds. He is still doing what it takes to bring people in. He has got a huge base of support right now. As he becomes the nominee, if that does end up being the case, JR, then you're going to see a lot of rallying around and a lot of things that the RNC will be able to do because of fundraising capabilities.
I don't see the people who are so baked in being anti-Trump, the Haleys of the world. I do not see how you politically pivot back to the conversation of being pro-Trump when you've gone so far to saying he's a challenge in whatever angle you want to present the word challenge to.
We've heard the former governor talk about closing the gap in South Carolina, not necessarily winning here, but she's got a ways to go. That latest Winthrop poll shows, what, a 36-point deficit between Trump and Haley, right?
And that's very consistent with other polling we've seen.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is the former president continues to get stronger as the days go by in the Republican Party. And if you look at South Carolina snapshot as a whole, there's only one federal official and very few others who have not stood in line next to him as an endorsed candidate
and that
for president.
That only particular one is the congressman from the 5th Congressional District, Ralph Norman. He has been a Haley supporter. They served in the South Carolina House together, along with Nathan Ballantyne and Tom Davis, who have been her biggest legislative supporters. What we're looking right now, JR, as we get into the last curve of the race, so to speak, is will Nikki Haley be able to do what she did back in 2010 when she ran for governor and close any amount of this 25-point gap? We're
36 points.
Well, she closed at least 25 points of a close to be able to be within single digits, to be where she thinks she needs to be, which is showing a difference how she has been closing a gap with Donald Trump. That's 25 points right there. That's a lot of people, JR, to show up for a vote.
On the flip side, the special counsel that was investigating President Biden says he's an elderly man with a poor memory. You've spent time with the president. What's your response to that?
I think the special counsel could not indict him legally, so he tried to indict him politically. But I think that's going to have a reverse effect. If you saw the results in Pennsylvania on Tuesday night and in New York, you see how that narrative does not trickle down to the voters. You saw Democrats, Republicans, and independents show up to not only vote in support of Joe Biden's party, but Joe Biden's agenda. And so this idea of getting distracted about age, keep in mind, I would rather have 81 Joe Biden than 91 counts of an indictment from the former President Donald Trump.
We are in a transitional period right now in American politics. I think if you take a look at what is in Washington, D.C. right now, you're going to see over the next 4 to 6 years that age group, the older age group who's in leadership right now, are going to be retiring or phasing out in one way, shape, or form. We're going to see over the next decade, or the rest of this decade at least, I think you're going to see a real change in the age of leadership in America. That's really what Nikki Haley's, I think, trying to start to pinpoint right now in her run, is to make that point that, as she said before, what do you want to have? Choose between two 80-year-old white men or something different.
Well, but I laugh at that because we're from South Carolina where Strom Thurmond was our senator.
That's true. Alex was our senator. Yeah, exactly.
Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republican Party, so I laugh when people start talking about age because with age comes experience. On the flip side, you have my political father, mentor, Jim Clyburn, who announced earlier this week that he is stepping down from House Democratic leadership, not from Congress, but from House Democratic leadership to put a more precision focus on the presidential campaign and what that looks like, but also to pass the baton while he's still running the race. Yeah. And that is the sign of a great leader. And I think Joe Biden, as a candidate, plays to be a transitional leader. And you see him doing that in several different ways. Whereas, on the other side, you have the former president who's doing the opposite.
All right, a couple of quick issues over at the State House I want to get to real quick. Medical marijuana, is this going to pass in both the chambers this year?
Where it fell apart last time was a technical vote that happened on the House floor. The question then becomes one of, do you have enough maneuverable votes on the House floor? How is that House Freedom Caucus going to act? Are they going to go in alignment with the Democrats? Are they going to push against leadership or not? It's going to be a real question. It's going to be a real nail-biter, so to speak, when you look at it once the vote finally comes down on the South Carolina House floor.
All right, Sunday liquor sales. Will local governments get the opportunity to approve liquor sales on Sunday afternoons?
I think this is about freedom and counties and individuals having to decide what business looks like, who's been able to do what. And so I do think the handsome bipartisan vote in the House should send a signal. Who knows what will happen in the Senate? But that's what this process is about. But for anyone who may be against it and say you're pro-freedom, then I think you have to think twice about freedom.
So let's rewind the clock and look at this a little bit historically for you folks at home. Remember a few years ago, we did this with beer and wine, that certain counties were given the right and the ability to allow wine and beer sales on Sunday. That was the old blue laws because they were actually written on blue pieces of paper. So the blue laws changed, and we're now seeing the next generation of that happening where you can look at Sunday liquor sales. The next level of that is going to be the road that's being paved, ironically, for delivery of alcohol, beer, and wine to homes, and that's another debate that's going on the floor.
All right, Dave Wilson, Antoine C. Wright. Guys, as always, thank you so very much for your time.
Thanks, JR.
A quick